Good afternoon, humans, and people who like the cards my daddy does. Is that close enough, Daddy? Can I go back to eating now? Thought we'd try a little bit of a different introduction today for our first ever, officially, Super Deck Sunday. I've always wanted to do that. Today's Super Deck Sunday is going to be an episode featuring the energy deck that I built using those two decks that you saw in yesterday's video. I honestly have been meaning to build, not to build, I've been honestly meaning to do this video for many months, but, as I got these decks back around Aether Drift time, but the problem was there was a certain card that I was waiting for that came out in Aether Drift that I wanted to add to the deck, and you're going to see that card when I'm done revealing all these little piles right away, because it's going to end up showing up right on top of the artifact pile. Now I'm just going to try and make sure all these little piles show up on camera, because I want to go through each pile separately, but I want them all to be visible to you guys at the same time. So, little story, I bought the two energy decks thinking I would come up with a way to combine the two and they would be the only cards I would use. That was the original rules for the video, or the challenge I was giving myself. But unfortunately there was just no way that was going to happen, because there was at least a few creatures that I owned, or spells that I owned, that I was just super eager to use in an artifact deck, and this is the only artifact deck I've ever built that includes white so far. So those cards had to go in this deck, and that's why you'll see a few things got cut from both piles that you might have thought I should have added into this deck, but I'm pretty happy with the way the deck is. But the card I was waiting for, Forever and a Day, we'll start it with that, and then we'll actually go through the piles across this way, I think, because the artifacts are the fun part at the end, in my opinion. Well, no, we'll do the normal route. It's fine, we'll do the normal route. But let's actually start with the commander before we get into that. Yes, I'm a little bit scatterbrained this afternoon. So I decided to go with Dr. Madison Lee after going over all four of the options that I had for commander. This one felt like it was the one that generated the energy the most frequently and would get the engine going that I'm trying to accomplish on the battlefield. Plus, it gave me a lot of different options for using my energy, which I really enjoyed the idea of. Is that camera? Maybe I can move it a little bit. Sorry for the wobble. Just trying to see if I can get it to focus a little more on this. There we go, that's better. So that's why I picked Dr. Madison Lee. I kept tokens from both sets. I thought that it would be fun to have tokens from each set represented in the deck. So, but I did like the energy one from Fallout best. I'm going to be the first to admit that I do not play Fallout. I have no real clue what Fallout is other than the general premise that some sort of nuclear explosion war happened, and this is kind of like the world afterwards. Beyond that, I don't know much of anything about Fallout. So I apologize for those of you who are like huge fans of the property. My thing was definitely Lord of the Rings. That's what brought me in. So I'm glad if Fallout brought you in. But let's start with this. So this card here is an insanely awesome card in this deck. Aether Flux Conduit says, whenever you cast a spell, you get an amount of energy equal to the mana that you spent to cast that spell. And then you can tap this thing and pay 50 energy to draw 7 cards, and you can cast any number of spells from your hand without paying their mana cost. So basically this thing gives you omniscience for a turn. And it gives you 7 extra cards on top of whatever you already had in your hand. So that's pretty kick-ass, and I got a fart one. But the story I wanted to tell was there's a guy at my LGS. He's a really cool guy. I don't want to say his name on video just in case he would be upset that I did. But he had this card and was willing to trade with me, or was willing to sell it to me, and was super cool about it. But we couldn't meet up. And every time we tried to meet up, either I was sick or he had something that came up and he couldn't make it in. And so we had planned for me to get this card off of him back in February. And I didn't get this card off of him until the recent pre-release. So that tells you how long I've been waiting to get this card, and that's why I haven't put out that video from yesterday until yesterday. Because I wanted to make sure that I did the deck and then I could post both videos so you could see what I came up with afterwards without having to wait like forever and a day per se. I was worried that something would come up and I wouldn't be able to post both right away, and turns out I was right. Anyways, so the Aether Flux Conduit is a key spell in this deck for sure, especially because I'm just going to see if I can quickly flip to the other ones that work. There's Aether Works Marvel. Whenever a permanent you control is put into a graveyard, you get energy. There is the Stone Idol Generator. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you get energy. The Solar Transformer isn't as good at the energy thing. Is it Generatorium? If you would get one or more energy, you get that many energy plus one. That's pretty good. There's a couple more here. I just want to flip through and find them real quick. If you get one or more energy, you get twice that many energy instead. And so the goal is to just basically, like I say, keep generating a massive amount of energy. This one you can tap and get 2 energy. This one, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get energy. Whenever Ganti's Heart or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you get energy. And so basically the idea is to just get a crap ton of energy going using all these different artifacts in combination with the commander and with the other cards in the deck so that you can constantly have a solid energy basis for all the different costs that you're going to pay. Hopefully this is close enough that you guys are able to see what I'm playing with. I'll show you the rest of the artifacts now. We've got Camp. Whenever a fortified land is tapped for mana, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. If that creature shares a color with the mana that the land produced, create a junk token. It's an artifact with sacrifice this artifact, exile the top, blah, blah, blah. And then you can pay 3, and then you fortify by attaching this thing to target land you control. So basically it's like the mechanic with the creatures, reconfigure. But instead you're attaching this to a land, which is pretty cool. I like that. Brotherhood Vertibird, flying. Its power is equal to the number of artifacts you control, which is insane. And it only costs 2 to crew. So that thing's easily a powerhouse to be swinging with. Aether Sphere Harvester. When this thing enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. You can pay 1 energy. This thing gains lifelink until end of turn. It only costs 1 to crew. Ever-Flowing Chalice. You can kick it for 2. And you can do that multiple times when it comes in. And then this thing gets charge counters and gives you mana for the number of charge counters. Plasma Caster gets +1/+1. Whenever a equipped creature attacks, you get 2 energy. And then you can pay 2 energy and choose a target creature that's blocking this thing. Flip a coin. If you win the flip, you get to exile the chosen creature. Otherwise, it deals 1 damage to it, which is not ideal, but I mean, you're still doing something. Lightning Greaves is insane. Everybody loves that card. Soul Ring, of course. Arcane Signet is worthwhile in this deck. Solar Transformer gives you 3 energy, and then you add colorless, or you can pay 1 mana when you tap it. Not mana. Pay 1 energy when you tap it, and you get 1 mana of any color. The T-45 Power Armor is pretty solid. Enters the battlefield, get 2 energy. Equipped creature gets +3/+3, doesn't untap. But you can pay at the beginning of your upkeep energy, and if you do, you can untap the creature, then put a choice of a different type of counter on it. Either Menace, Trample, or Lifelink. So if you want, you can move that around to all your different creatures and give them like all kinds of different extra benefits, which is pretty cool. The Nuka-Cola vending machine is just an insanely fun card. Pay one, tap it, create a food token. Whenever you sacrifice a food, you get a tap treasure token. You're going to see later on I have a key card that works with that. I'm sure you can guess what it is. And yes, it's exactly what you think it is. Conversion apparatus. You get one colorless, or you can pay 3 and you get 3 energy, or you can tap it and pay 3 energy and you get 3 mana of any combination of colors. Automated assembly line. Whenever you one or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you get energy. And then you can pay 3 energy and create a tap colorless 3/3 robot. And Panharmonicon. If an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So that combined with all these things over here, just massive energy, massive energy, massive energy. It's a really solid energy generating deck. The only thing I might put in, which I'm still considering whether I want to put it into the deck or not, and the only reason I haven't decided for sure is simply because I really don't know what I want to pull from it. But the other day, I pulled a Golden Argosy, and currently that is like the card that's sitting over here waiting to be worked into the deck somehow. Like I say, it was a very recent pull, so I haven't actually worked it into the deck since I finished the deck. But I'm contemplating putting it in. So maybe as I go through the video, I might come up with something that I want to take out. But for now, I'm pretty happy with the way everything is. We're going to continue on to enchantments, which this deck is like, if there's one thing that this deck is severely weak in, it's in terms of enchantments, sorceries, instants. All 3 of those piles have combined 12 cards, which is not very many. It's definitely an artifact-based deck, and it definitely will suffer, I think, in terms of that, but that's why it's not meant to be like a power 4 or anything like that. It's basically a bracket 3, bracket 2 kind of deck. This is Legion Loyalty. It costs 8 to get it in, but once you get in, all your creatures have Myriad. If anything, that's the card I'm thinking about taking out and putting in the Golden Argosy. The only reason for that switch would be that whenever the Golden Argosy attacks, anything that crews it gets exiled and then gets returned to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step, which is basically just re-trigger a whole bunch of my effects. But Myriad will also do the same thing. The only difference is the legendary creatures will get multiple copies, but they'll also get sacrificed right away. And this deck does have a lot of legendary creatures. I was surprised how many creatures from Fallout who are actually considered legendaries. You okay, Gaba? He can't seem to get himself settled. Anyways, we've also got Mechanized Production, which is just basically in there as an alternate win con. With the Nuka-Cola machine, we've got all the different little artifact tokens that we're going to be generating. And as I said later, there's of course a creature in here, and again, you know exactly which creature it's going to be. There's no surprise. That creature will definitely generate a whole bunch of extra tokens, which will give me more chance of winning with this card. And Era of Innovation. Whenever an artifact or artificer enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, you get 2 energy. And you can pay 6 energy to sacrifice this thing and draw 3 cards. That's the only other card I'm considering taking out, possibly for the Golden Argosy. It generates some mana, but it's an extra cost to get that. Or, damn it, I gotta stop saying mana. It generates energy, but it costs mana to get that extra energy. And while that is really good, because we always want to generate more energy, the extra cost to mana sometimes can hurt. So it's another card I'm considering taking out. Let me know in the comments which of those two, if anything, you would pull, or whether you would pull something else as we go through here. I really think the ship should go in the deck, though. Maybe you disagree. Oh boy, what did you drop? What did you drop? Is it this? Is it that one? That's disgusting. I don't want you eating that. I'm not sure what that is. Sorry, guys. 1 second. That's silly, baby. I'm not sure what it is that you're upset about. You got treats all over the place here. Okay. So as I was saying, I really think the ship should go in, but maybe you guys disagree. I'd love to hear your feedback, as always. Going on to sorceries, we've got Jolted Awake. Choose up to one target artifact or creature card in your graveyard. You get 2 energy, and you can pay energy equal to its mana value to return that thing to the battlefield. Insanely valuable in this deck. Austere Command is just a lot of fun. You can choose 2 and just wipe the board of anything that's irritating you at the time. The best thing for me is if I pick enchantments, it's really not going to affect my deck all that much. And depending on which level of the creatures I pick, I can probably get away with losing very little of anything. Confiscation Coup. Choose a target artifact or creature, you get 4 energy, then you can pay an amount of energy equal to that thing's permanent value, mana value, and if you do, you gain control of it. So this is like an Evoke the Winds, essentially, but it costs a little bit less for sure, and it also is, again, based on energy, which this whole deck is designed around, which is what the fun part of the deck is. It's the reason why I built the deck. It's just because sometimes I like a weird mechanic. It's like my werewolf deck. Most people hate Night Day. I love Night Day. I think it's so much fun to play that sometimes. Wake the Past. Return all artifact cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. They gain haste until end of turn. Again, crazy value in this deck. And Farewell, another one just to wipe out whatever is being an issue. So, I mean, it definitely has some powerful sorceries and some powerful enchantments, and you're going to see a few powerful instants next. But, yeah. The more I look at it, the more I think I might pull this, actually. But again, I'm gonna leave it up to you guys in the comments, and we'll put it to a vote maybe in a post later this week. Electro Siphon costs 3 to counter a spell, and then I get energy equal to the amount of its mana value. It's, I think, the only counter spell in this entire deck. This one lets you exile an artifact or enchantment, exile a creature, and if you control your commander, you can do both of these, and you give your board Flying Vigilance Double Strike, as well as Lifelink Indestructible and protection from each color until end of turn. So if you're controlling your commander, basically this is like a game-winning swing card too, which is awesome. As I said, that is the one thing that this deck is severely lacking is counter magic, and that's simply because so many creatures develop generated energy or used energy in unique and fun ways, and I wanted this deck to focus on that. So, like I say, we'll go into the creatures next and you'll see what I mean. It's just loaded. This thing is Sentinel Sarah Lyons. She has haste, and as long as an artifact enters the battlefield under my control this turn, all my creatures get +2/+2. Plus, whenever she and at least 2 other creatures attack, she deals damage equal to the number of artifacts I control to target player. So, I mean, she doesn't count as an artifact, unfortunately, but there's a lot of artifacts in this deck, so it's definitely worth swinging with her when you can. For example, Sphinx of the Revelation. Artifact creature, flying lifelink, 4/5. Whenever you gain life, you get that many energy. And then you can pay white and 2 blue, tap this, pay X energy, and draw X cards. So, I mean, I'm not going to use that effect very often, probably, in this deck, to be perfectly honest. But just gaining all the energy from lifelink is fantastic. Double strike haste. Whenever this thing attacks, you get 2 energy. Then you can pay 8 energy, and if you do, you get to untap all your creatures, and there's an additional combat phase. Fantastic card, Lightning Runner. Steel Overseer, a cheap artifact creature that lets me put a +1/+1 counter on every artifact creature I control, just by tapping it. So far that's 2 creatures. Here we got our legendary creature, Human Artificer. This was the other commander, one of the other commanders. Menace Haste. And whenever this thing attacks, you create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of up to one other target non-token creature you control. You get 2 energy, and at the beginning of your next end step, you have to sacrifice the token unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. Very, very cool creature. The only thing is it doesn't generate enough energy, in my opinion, to make it a better commander than Dr. Madison Lee. That's why I run her instead of the Aether Flux Genius. Aether Squall Ancient, flying. At the beginning of my upkeep, I get 3 energy, and I can pay 8 to return all other creatures to their owner's hands. Crazy ability. Costs 7 to put it into play, but it's worthwhile, in my opinion, for what it does. Blaster Hulk. Basically, this deck, what I try to do is, since I don't have a lot of counter magic, I try to have as many threats as I can, so that you don't know what you should target. Basically, you either have to board wipe, or you're going to be having a real difficult time picking out which pieces to get rid of in order to try and weaken the eventual swings. This thing's cost 1 less to cast for each energy that I've paid in or lost in the turn. It has haste, and whenever it attacks, I get 2 energy, then I can pay 8, and if I do, this thing deals 8 damage, divided as I choose. So that's before blockers are declared. So basically, I could potentially wipe out a significant amount of defenders off of Hurson's board before we go into the actual blockers and damage steps, which is really cool. Paladin Dance, Steel Maverick, another artifact creature. So far, how many is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. We're up to 4 so far. Has Vigilance and Lifelink, and you can exile this thing, and each creature you control that's an artifact or human gains indestructible until end of turn. Crazy good in this deck. Artifact creature Golem. Obviously, Simulacrum is got to be included in this deck. It came with actually both of the precons, so I've just picked out which artwork I liked better and put that artwork in this deck. Everybody knows how Sad Robot works, so I'm just going to move on from there. Another artifact creature, though. Elder Owen Lions. Artifacts you control have Ward 1, which is just fantastic for this deck. Whenever it enters the battlefield or dies, return target artifact creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Artifact card, from your graveyard to your hand. So, that's another reason, there's another card that would be perfect to interact with the Golden Argosy. The Combustible Gear Hulk has first strike. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent may have me either draw 3 cards, and if they don't, I mill 3, and then they take damage equal to the total mana value of those cards. Crazy value off of an enter the battle effect. Again, Golden Argosy, sorry. Brotherhood Scribe. This thing just gives you energy, which is awesome when you have 3 or more artifacts. And whenever you get 1 or more energy during your turn, all your creatures get +1/+1. Now, I think that triggers multiple times in your turn if you get multiple instances of gaining energy. I think. That's something I need to look up. But that's one of the main reasons why I really like that guy. Another artifact creature, Synth, Improvise, which is great. Can help me cast this spell. And whenever it enters the battlefield, it is a copy of any creature on the battlefield except as a synth artifact creature in addition to its other types. So basically, whatever I want a copy on the board, I get a copy of on my board, which is pretty cool. Assuming that it doesn't have some sort of protection that makes it impossible for me to target it. Professional Facebreaker is just an awesome card. Gives you whenever one or more creatures deal combat damage, you get a treasure token. Again, that alternate win con that I showed you earlier is definitely something you want with this. Aether Storm Rock. When it or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get an energy. Whenever this thing attacks, you can pay 2 energy. If you do, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And you can tap up to one target creature the defending player controls. So another way to eliminate blockers. Also boost its power. Also another card that's fantastic with this, if you so choose to crew it instead of attacking. This is one of the few cards that I added from outside of both those commander decks, because it just is way too good not to be included. I hope I've been on camera this whole time. If I'm going to be really upset. Lock, Shield, Clockwork Scholar prevents all combat damage would be dealt to any of my attacking artifact creatures. And whenever one of them enters the battlefield, I get to draw a card. But it only happens once a turn, unfortunately. Still though, once per turn I get an extra card, which is pretty good. But definitely the first ability is the reason why it's in here. Arcade Ganon, you get to draw a card and discard a card, then you put a quest counter on this thing. And once during each of your turns, you can cast an artifact or human spell from your graveyard with mana value less than or equal to the number of quest counters on this thing. I think you get to do that without paying the mana cost, but I'm not sure. Probably not, because it doesn't say that specifically, so actually I'm going to say no, but I could be wrong. Goldspan Dragon, another thing that just gives you lots of treasures. And your treasures tap to add 2 mana instead of 1, which is pretty cool. I love this guy, Rex Cyberhound. He's definitely one of my favorite creatures in this deck. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player mills 2 cards, and I get 2 energy. And then I can pay 2 energy, and I can choose a target creature card in a graveyard, exile it with a brain counter on it, and anything that has a brain counter on it, I get the abilities of. It's just a crazy cool robot dog. Another artifact as well. Loyal Apprentice, haste at the beginning of your combat. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, you get a 1/1 colorless Thopter. Insane value. Just more artifacts coming in, more generation of an energy. Where the Virtuoso enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. Again, Argosy. Pay 3 energy, create a solid Thopter. Kaias, Famed Mechanist, one of the other alternate commanders. This one I wasn't a super huge fan of. The Fabricate mechanic is kind of neat. When this creature enters, you either put a +1/+1 counter or you create a servo. And all your non-token creatures have the Fabricate as well, but the big thing is I don't like the fact that you have to tap it to use its mechanic of either populate or proliferate. Both are really good mechanics, don't get me wrong. If I didn't have to tap, if I just could pay the 2, this card would probably be my commander. Or at least it would have been definitely the second choice, instead of being 3rd or 4th. Whirler Rogue is just a classic. Enters the battlefield, you create 2 Thopter tokens. If you did not guess, Academy Manufacturer was the card I've been referencing the entire time. I'm hoping that you're fairly new to the game, because that was definitely what I thought would be a super obvious one. I'm making a whole bunch of treasures. I'm going to make a whole bunch of clues. I'm going to make a whole bunch of food. When I make a whole bunch of food, I'm going to make more treasures. When I make more treasures, I'm going to make more food. It's just going to be an endless cycle, and it's just going to be a super way for this card to get that win con to go off really fast. And this card is an easy one for me to get back out of the graveyard and onto the battlefield repeatedly throughout this deck as well. So, that's definitely one of the ways I want to win this game. If I don't win through combat, I want to win through generation of tokens. Razorfield Ripper is an equipment card, which I love because reconfigures a lot of fun. You can pay either 2 mana or 3 energy to do the ability, which is awesome. And whenever it or the equipped creature attacks, you get an energy, and then you get +X until end of turn, where X is the amount of energy you have. So that's just insane value in this deck. You're basically just building up something super beefy with that card. Salvation Colossus, Flying Vigilance Trample, another insane card. Whenever you attack, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and indestructible until end of turn. And you can pay 8 energy to unearth this thing. Unfortunately, if you can't flicker it to save it from unearth, so I probably wouldn't play the unearth ability. I'd probably use some of the other abilities in here to regenerate it if I could. It does cost 8 to put it into play, but it's definitely worth putting into play. Liberty Prime was probably my second or third choice of commander. I do like that you have to pay energy to use its attack or blocking ability. I do like the fact that you can pay to tap it and sacrifice an artifact to get 2 energy and draw a card as well. So it gives you energy, it also loses energy. It has Vigilance and Trample and Haste, which means you can attack with it, and then you can trigger the ability in the last end step of the person before you, which is pretty cool. You've got tons of things to sacrifice with the tokens that you're making with the Academy manufacturer, so great times. This is another one of those ones that I said I was adding from outside of the game. It's just too good a card not to put into an artifact deck. As you're controlling 3 artifacts, whenever you swing with this thing, all the creatures your opponents control will lose their abilities and have a base power and toughness of 1/1 until end of turn. You make sure that this thing gets protection, and you swing with this thing, and there's just no stopping you from rolling right over your opponents. Brutaclad Telcor Engineer. Creature tokens you control have haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can create a 2/1 blue Phyrexian Mirror artifact creature token. And then you can choose a token you control. If you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token until end of turn. So, I mean, if you play this card the right... Or no, it doesn't say until end of turn. Holy crap. So, I mean, in theory, you could actually... And it doesn't say creature token either. It just says each other token. So you could turn all your treasures into 2/1 Phyrexian... That's funny. I didn't even think about that until I just started doing this. That's awesome. The Motherlode Excavator. When this thing enters the battlefield, choose a target opponent. You get an amount of energy equal to the amount of non-basic lands they control. So many people just run all those 2 option lands and 3 option lands and all kinds of other crap. So, I mean, you're going to get a bunch of energy when you play this card. And again, whenever it enters, so, whenever this thing attacks, you can pay 4 energy, and if you do, you destroy target non-basic land defending player controls, and creatures that player controls without flying can't block this turn. I don't really like the idea of destroying the land. I do like the idea of preventing blocking. So, there's a solid chance I'd play that ability. Assaultron Dominator. This thing enters the battlefield. You get 2 energy. Whenever an artifact creature you control attacks, you can pay 1 energy. If you do, you put your choice of +1/+1 first strike or trample counter on that creature. And this isn't like a once per turn thing. It's like whenever any of those creatures attack. So you can pay 1 energy for a whole bunch of different creatures to get a whole bunch of different abilities on the board, which is awesome. Royal Cartographer is a landfall ability which gives you energy, and then you can tap to pay 6 energy and draw 3 cards. Great card. And finally, Sentry Bot. Slash, it costs 1 less to cast for each creature attacking you, and when it enters, you get energy for each creature attacking you. Then at the beginning of combat on your turn, you can pay 3 energy, and if you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So it's just a... If you survive what's springing at you, you get an insane amount of energy for triggering abilities on your next turn. And yeah. I'll just flip through the lands real quick. I do like a lot of the full art lands. I do like a lot of the lands from the Fallout series. That one's really pretty. So nice, I had it a couple times. There's the island one. And the mountain one again. Just lots of really pretty lands in these decks. Did I put a Mystic Monastery twice? Path of Ancestry, Aether Hub, Command Tower. Nope, I'm good. Okay. So, for now, the more I've talked about it, the more I've decided I have to put this card in. I'm going to take out the Era of Innovation. I think it's too costly a card in terms of the fact that you have to sacrifice it to get the 3 card draw. And the fact that you have to pay 1 to get the 2 energy every time, that seems a little much. I like the ship. I'm going to put that in. So let me know in the comments if you agree with that choice. If you think it was the wrong choice, I'm happy to listen to you guys and see what you think. Anyways, this has been Super Deck Sunday. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I look forward to doing the next one for you guys. Like I say, each Sunday I'm going to either do a deck profile for you guys of one of the commander decks I already own, or I might open a new commander deck on the channel sometimes for this, or on the rare occasion, if you guys are interested, and let me know in the comments if you are, I might actually do a video where I'm showing you how I do my deck building, at least some of it, because it usually takes me hours to do. It's not something I do very quickly. But I can definitely edit and cut some of that down and make something cool for you guys. Anyways, we're going to leave it there. I've got a couple more videos I want to film for the week, and I've got laundry to do as well. So, much love to you all. From me to you, take care, and bye!